This episode is brought to you by Sacred Rites, which provides support, resources, and networks for religion scholars committed to translating their research to a broader audience. You can find more information about their work at sacred-rites.org. Welcome to Classical Ideas. This is Greg Soden. On this episode, I am delighted to welcome Dr. Kaitlyn Ugoretz back for a return visit. Kaitlyn Ugoretz is an anthropologist of religion focused on the globalization of Japanese Shinto practices through popular culture such as anime, video games, and Marie Kondo's decluttering. The associate editor of the Japanese Journal of Religious Studies and a member of the Sacred Rites 2021 Public Scholarship Training Cohort, Kaitlyn Ugoretz also promotes public scholarship on Japanese religions through her award-winning educational YouTube channel, Eat, Pray, Anime. She also appears in podcast interviews, does cultural consulting, and much more, such as writing for venues like Religion News Services and The Conversation. On this episode, we mostly discuss her article, The YouTube Gods Will Bless You, Seeking Algorithmic Salvation in the YouTube Prosperity Gospel, from the journal Religion. This is a fun and relevant conversation to anyone thinking about AI, content creation, and religion. Enjoy. Dr. Kaitlyn Ugoretz, welcome back to Classical Ideas.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be back.
I am delighted that you're here. I'm wondering if you can just spend a moment and introduce yourself a little bit to the audience out there so they know just a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. So my name is Dr. Kaitlyn Ugoretz, a newly doctor. So I'm getting as much mileage out of the title as I can
Fabulous.
at the moment. I'm an expert in Asian religions, digital technology, popular culture, and media. The way that this usually shows up in my work is that I study a Japanese religion called Shinto and how it's being globalized around the world through things like anime and video games, and also martial arts and that sort of thing. Aside from that, I also look at issues in general of religion and digital technology. Outside of my publishing and my academic work, I also host an academic YouTube channel called Eat, Pray, Anime, where I talk about the religious culture and history behind everybody's favorite Japanese media.
That's awesome. And you've been here before. We've talked about this a little bit. You were here on the podcast on episode 215, 5 years ago or so. September 18th, 2021 is when your episode came out. We talked about transnational Shinto and also digital content creation. We talked about educational YouTube. What has the last 5 years of your academic journey been like since you were last here?
Yeah, where does the time go? I've been very busy, as we all are. The last time we spoke, we were in kind of the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic. I was cut off from my field site in Japan, couldn't take my dissertation writing fellowships, living with my parents in upstate New York. And since then, I worked in Japan for 3 years at the Nanzan Institute for Religion and Culture. I continue to do some editing work for them. We published the Japanese Journal of Religious Studies, which is the flagship journal in our field. We published the new Nanzan Guide to Japanese Religions. In the meantime, I've become frankly obsessed with Tory Gates and done a lot of work around that on social media. If you look up hashtag Tory Tuesday, I ran a lot of social media threads about the different shapes and colors and materials and historical background of these gates that are associated with both Shinto as a form of sacred architecture. If you type Shinto into your emoji keyboard, the Tory gate pops up. And I have also been working in tour guiding. I run tours as an expert for the Smithsonian Journeys program. And more recently, just this past January, I moved to the University of Idaho, where I'm the postdoctoral fellow in East Asian Cinema and Media Studies at the Habib Institute for Asian Studies. So I've been teaching anime. Class just wrapped up. It was a blast.
Awesome. Tell me a little bit about your Templeton Foundation work with Sacred Rites as well with the working group.
Yeah, so last time we spoke, it was my first time working with sacred rites. They taught me so much about public scholarship and how to present my ideas in different ways through different avenues. And I'm working with them again for the past couple of years as part of this John Templeton Foundation grant with Liz Bucar and a really excellent group, I mean, of scholars working on different topics in religion and the ethics of spiritual borrowing. So I've been looking at this in terms of, the globalization of Asian religions, how people are picking up trends from like Marie Kondo and Zen and stuff like that. And so through this, partnership, I've also been writing some new YouTube videos that I hope will come out soon, and just generally, getting back into thinking about presenting my ideas to a wider audience on how religion is working in the world today in unexpected ways.
Just to kind of segue us to a piece that you wrote about YouTube, you've been doing so much educational content creation over the last like 5 years. How are you enjoying what you do in the online spaces? Like, do you like it? Or like, because you and I, we kind of share this in common where you have a show, I do a show. Mine's pretty much all audio. Dabble in video a lot more. But how are you enjoying this creation element in your life, just doing this, what we do?
It's so fun and it adds just like a different perspective to, I think, everything that I do. So I haven't made a ton of videos in the last couple of years because, I mean, you know how much work goes into production. It is a full-time job on top of your job. But I'm always like on the lookout for content now. And so I'm paying attention to things in new ways. So when I was living in Japan, I would go places, and even though I wasn't actively producing a lot of content, I was constantly recording, thinking about video ideas. Oh, this is an interesting concept. How could I bring this to audiences who don't have the luxury of traveling in Japan? I think it's been really useful for my work as a tour guide, presenting different facets of Japanese life in an accessible way. So YouTubing, taking on that identity, taking on those sorts of like practices of content creation has been really generative for me. I do study social media and digital technology in general, so I was already in this, milieu. But at the rate that technology is constantly changing, I've been really fascinated with, all of the new sorts of practices and interests that pop up.
Awesome. Well, a piece that I want to talk about of yours is called The YouTube Gods Will Bless You, Seeking Algorithmic Salvation in the YouTube Prosperity Gospel from the journal Religion. And you talk a lot about your own story as a content creator, learning how to become a content creator in the article, which I found really compelling. How did you first become interested in studying like the relationship between religion and digital technologies to kind of set the stage for this particular article?
Yeah, I've always been interested in digital technology in one way or another. I owe a lot of, the person I am now and the interests that I have academically and personally to my dad, who I mentioned. Shout out to my dad, Jeff Ugoretz. He is a Presbyterian minister in upstate New York. But before that, he was a computer science major. And so growing up, we were always talking about, religion and cool new gadgets and how can we use technology in interesting ways in church, reading a lot of sci-fi, Star Trek. I've been doing some reading recently of William Gibson's famous cyberpunk novel Neuromancer. And so it was actually my dad who, when I started getting interested in our AI, because it's just in the air that we breathe now, Chat GPT is a menace. um, that he was like, hey, I read these books where there were AIs and science fiction writers decades ago were thinking about gods as, algorithms. How would we respond to these, amazing leaps in technology and maybe sentient beings that aren't human? And so I've kind of mixed up all of those interests into my own work. And it's gotten me interested in topics that aren't just related to Japan, although a lot of times people want to ask me, what do you think about all the robots in Japan? There's a new robot Buddhist priest, a Shinto shrine used some sacred Roombas to clean up the shrine. Like, what's going on here? So I'm constantly thinking about, robots and technology and religion because it's just really fun.
Awesome. Yeah. And like in this article, it's so interesting too, because you write about Sean Cannell, I think is his name, from Think
Hmm.
Media, and the courses he has for content creators. And you took one of these courses, correct?
I did. So during the COVID pandemic, and I probably mentioned this back in 2021, but I didn't have a lot going for me, it seemed. And so I dived into YouTube head first after working with Andrew Mark Henry, who's the host of the
Hmm.
way more popular and impactful and amazing YouTube channel, Religion for Breakfast, now part of his project Religion Department. And I wanted to kind of level up my skills. And so, with the funding provided by both the American Academy of Religion, Luce Foundation grant for like creative projects, and also an individualized professional skills grant from the UC Santa Barbara, where I was doing my PhD at the time, I was able to pay for this $1,000 course that I would otherwise never shell out for
Hmm.
from Think Media because I had been consuming so many of their videos, trying to figure out how to be a better YouTuber. And when I started taking this course, I discovered that there was a lot of religious language being thrown around, and that really piqued my curiosity. I didn't start the course looking for religion, but it found me again.
Excellent. Well, so what are you noticing as far as like what Sean Cannell would talk about as being religious in general for creators? Like, tell me a little bit about this because you have it built into the title that YouTube gods will bless you, like the algorithmic salvation. Like, tell me about this language and how this first started popping up to you and what you noticed.
Yeah, so it really hit me over the head. Sean Cannell was not subtle. Just for folks who aren't familiar with Think Media, it's a YouTube coaching and strategy channel run by Sean and some of his coworkers slash friends who share their sort of tips for how to be a better YouTuber. The course is called Video Ranking Academy. And they put out a lot of public media in order to kind of give you a taste of ideally, the skills and the knowledge that you'll get from the course. And I remember I was watching one of the asynchronous videos in the course, and it's worth quoting him. He says in one episode of the course, and all of this language is also used in his public video. So none of this is like, NDA secret information that you can only
Right.
get if you pay Sean, $1,000. But he said, follow the 10 YouTube commandments and the YouTube gods will bless you. When we really know what pleases the YouTube gods, then we can flourish in the YouTube kingdom and experience the blessings of automation from YouTube. Violate them and you will not have great success. Our goal here is to not get cast out of the YouTube kingdom.
Hmm.
So, end quote. This language is not exactly the language that I grew up with in church, but it's language that I'm very familiar with. And so when I started taking this course, I didn't expect to get a sermon on how the YouTube gods, quote unquote, were going to bless me. But the more that I started digging into research on religion and AI, because now I was, fascinated, I ran into the work of Beth Singler, who wrote a really fantastic article on the blessings of the algorithm on Twitter and how people were starting to use this religious language to discuss their encounters with AI and the power that they perceive it having over their lives. And so the more that I watched of the content, the more I kept seeing this language, about the algorithmic gods, the YouTube gods, the blessings of the algorithm pop up, not just, in Sean's own talking. It's worth noting that he got his start in video, making videos for his church. So I think that that filters into a lot of his language. But there's so many other people on multiple social media platforms who are using very similar language, who don't have that kind of background. So it's not just like an idiosyncratic thing to Sean, but that people are talking about. And even if it's like kind of a joke, tongue in cheek, even a joke has like a kernel of truth. And so I think that the language that people are using to talk about algorithmic gods, algorithmic blessings, comes from something that we're all wrestling with, which is, the power, but also the mystery behind how algorithms are working in our lives on an everyday basis.
Yeah, and then there's like the history of connecting him to Christian prosperity theology as well, which was super interesting. Tie that in too.
Sure. So the prosperity gospel, for people who aren't familiar with it, basically is like this amalgamation of a lot of different 20th century religious traditions or movements in particularly the US, but not just bound to the US. So we see, according to Kate Bowler, who wrote an excellent book on the prosperity gospel, it's this mixture of like Pentecostalism. So that teaches that, God is directly connected to us and has his hand in the world right now. He's active with us. And then also new thought, so like manifesting, mind over matter kind of thinking. And also like hustle culture or what Max Weber famously called the Protestant work ethic. So you have all of these things coming together to teach people and to give them hope that if they have faith, if they live their lives in a certain way, that God will have a direct hand in their lives and deliver them from, economic precarity, which I think we can all relate to these days, and that if you, abide by certain laws, that you will be able to sort of reap the benefits of your faith, which are typically there's three types. There's health, wealth, and victory. According to Kate Bowler, we could consider victory to be success or achievement. But it's the idea that there are certain laws you can follow, and almost algorithmically, like if you input faith and acts of faith, so, ritual deeds, then it will output through the magic or, the beneficence of God, these like, great blessings or salvation from the problems that we have in everyday life.
Are content creators taking on the language of prosperity gospel as well? Like, are you noticing any of that coming out as a result of the work of people like Sean Cannell who talk about it in a prosperity gospel kind of way?
I think so, and it's not super overt. So they're not always using exactly the same language of the prosperity gospel. But I've noticed, and I kind of draw out in my article, the things that people are saying and how they do tie into the prosperity gospel. So looking for these laws, content creation as an act of faith. Wendy Chun has written about how because algorithms are considered by many people to be sort of a black box, we don't really understand how they work. They are knowable, but not to like the everyday person and not completely. Even coders like usually only code like a piece of an algorithm, not the whole thing. It's a joint venture. But that because we don't really know how algorithms work, every time we interact with them, we're kind of taking on faith that certain outcomes will happen. And so in the article, I look into how these, what I call algorithmic prophets, people who claim to know better than the rest of us how the algorithm works and to produce proof of how their understanding of the algorithm has resulted in, the health, wealth, and success that they're looking for. How these people intuit or through experimentation learn what the laws of YouTube or the algorithmic blessings are. And they promise other people that they'll be able to achieve some kind of salvation by following, their 10-step program or whatever. And that this will result in the outcomes that people want, which is oftentimes like more flexibility, greater job satisfaction, independence, being able to work around or work from home. So mobility, financial stability, a platform to share one's views. So some of the things that we want to get out of this relationship with the algorithm gods is different from the prosperity gospel. But a lot of the core sort of structures and ways of thinking and acting are very, very similar to the prosperity gospel, in my opinion.
I have really mixed feelings on the facts that on the fact that I am a content creator because I don't really try to put like my takes into the world. Do you know what I mean?
Same.
I really struggle with that element of how that is such a goal with a lot of content creation and the fact that I do so much content creation myself, but I try not to make it like that. It's a really fine line, I think, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I struggle with this as well. So I felt really called out just writing this article. And I found it really difficult to kind of strike a tone somewhere between, being very critical of what's going on here, with, our relationship with digital agents and also, religious rhetoric. But I wrote this article also because I felt very implicated in all of this. I definitely started YouTube because I did buy into what I call the YouTube prosperity gospel, especially, in a tough time in my life where we were in COVID lockdown. I had like no money. Uh, it didn't seem like any job prospects. And so I didn't really know it at the time, but I kind of traded one hamster wheel for another. But it was very inspiring to hear these people online talk about how, they were in similarly difficult, precarious circumstances. And by starting a YouTube channel and creating content that they were passionate about, they kind of efface the economics behind everything. And of course, you're taking the course because you want to learn how to make money. But a lot of times the money is presented as secondary, which also resonates with me. I think, people who are in academia, adjacent to academia, or just really care about, the content or the messaging, their relationships with people aren't doing it from like a profit motive.
Hmm.
Um, but at the same time, we gotta pay the rent and pay the bills. And so one of the reasons why I took the course in the first place is trying to figure out how could I maybe build an alternative career for myself, be able to support myself and my family by doing content creation if academia didn't work out, which is its own hamster wheel.
Indeed, very much. What were some of the commandments that were told as far as like the success for prosperity within the algorithmic salvation? What were some of those commandments? Do you remember what those were?
Sure. So yeah, there are 10 of them, conveniently. So I'll just kind of run through the list and then
Yeah.
break down the general logic for people who are not involved in content creation because it can seem very obvious if you make content for platforms. But if you're just a casual viewer of YouTube, I think a lot of this is just kind of in the background. You don't know that it's going on. But the 10 YouTube commandments, according to Sean Cannell, are one, bring people to YouTube. Two, get the click, get them to watch your video. Three, get views or watch time quickly. I'll explain how the algorithm makes that necessary in a second. Four, keep viewers on your videos. Five, keep viewers to the end of your video. Six, get viewers to engage. So if you're watching a YouTube video, a lot of times at the end of the video, people will ask a provocative question and say, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Any kind of like or comment on something is engagement, and that feeds the algorithm, that tells the algorithm that it should recommend your videos more. Seven, don't let viewers leave. Eight, keep viewers coming back. Nine, keep viewers watching forever.
Mm.
And 10, don't break the rules. So basically, the way that the YouTube economy works is that because YouTube is a business, it's a social media platform. I'm sure we are all familiar where you can watch videos posted by other people or marketers or companies. Anybody can post, which is one of the nice things about YouTube. It is very kind of democratic in that way. Now, the way the algorithm works is not very democratic, but at least it seems like anybody can, get on the platform, start making videos, and hopefully build a following. But the way that YouTube actually makes their money is largely off of AdSense, which is the Google Ads kind of tie in because Google does own YouTube and they get a certain amount of money from people watching the ads. So, a lot of us, I think, have learned to tune out the ads that are either at the beginning, middle, or end of a video, or, wait 5 seconds and hit the skip button or pay for premium so that we don't have to watch ads. But marketers are paying Google and YouTube to get eyeballs on their own ads and try to sell you something, ideally targeted. So there's a lot of metrics that the YouTube algorithm or one of the algorithms that make up YouTube, because YouTube is basically many smaller algorithms in a trench coat. They figure out, okay, you like these kinds of videos, you would probably buy these kinds of products. And so the job of a successful YouTuber in order to get monetized is to get people on the platform, keep them watching the videos, which translates to more ads, which translates to more sales, which translates to more money. And the way that social media works, I mean, I think we all kind of know how addicting that it can be. The goal is to keep you on the platform as much as possible, the infinite scroll, the next recommended video. And so, the YouTube commandments are really training aspirational YouTubers or content creators to feed into this business framework. And ultimately, it always benefits the YouTube platform, but it doesn't always benefit the content creator. And so that's why you need something like the YouTube Prosperity Gospel to explain how you can become one of the chosen few that go viral on YouTube and make money off of that virality.
Mm. It's funny. I break all the laws of YouTube because I have YouTube associated with my podcasts as well. But what
Uh-huh.
happens is it just drags my audio and my logo artwork over to YouTube, and I actually have all the comments turned off, and I have no image associated with my audio. So it's just the logo and the audio that just gets drug over from my podcast hosting platform. So I am
Mm-hmm.
the YouTube law commandment breaker fully.
I support you in that. If you're not trying to make like buku bucks on YouTube, then you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, I want this to be a show where people don't come to watch, where they just can do other things, where they can be driving, where they can be out on a walk, where they can just listen. And so I have avoided the inclination to drag people into another video that they have to sit motionless and watch.
Yeah, I vibe with that. I'm a huge fan of listening to podcasts while I'm like cooking or doing the dishes.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, the video is just so much extra work. Audio is a lot of work, and the planning that goes into a podcast, and the scheduling and everything, and then to add another very technical element on top of it, where things need to be visually pleasing. A bunch of like little tips that I worked or that I learned from Sean Cannell, because I mean, I'm giving him a little bit of shit for espousing this, YouTube prosperity gospel that I think is probably, enriching himself, and it's built to do so, and also enriching YouTube in ways that are maybe not fair to everybody else. But I've learned a lot from him. He's very savvy about how the platform works. And, one of the things that he and other algorithmic prophets like him tell you is that because our attention spans are so short these days, something visually needs to be changing like every 10 seconds.
Hmm.
And that translates into a lot of editing.
Yeah.
And just, yeah, trying to keep eyeballs on the screen when all I really want to do is tell somebody about this cool religion thing in an anime somewhere.
Yeah. So where do you what are you focusing on next? Like, because this article actually came out a year ago, which is crazy. Because obviously only getting more and more relevant as content creation continues to grow. But what are you looking at next after having this piece in the world for a year?
Yeah, I hope it continues to be relevant. The crazy thing about writing, especially about technology, and then just the length of time that it takes to publish, is that by the time something comes out in print, like everything has already changed about a certain platform. I had to rewrite sections because certain metrics changed, certain features were added and taken away, like on a daily basis, which also keeps people coming back to the experts that will tell them how YouTube works. But I'm still fascinated with algorithms and how people relate to them. And so now something that I'm working on, aside from my book manuscript based on my study of global Shinto, working title is Worldwide Shinto. So that's in the works. Honestly, I need to be spending more time on it. But something that I've got cooking similar but also different to this article is looking at the way that people talk about algorithmic gods in gaming,
Mm.
specifically gotcha mechanics. So for people who maybe are not big gamers or don't play games where there's a gotcha mechanic, a lot of people have referred to it as online gambling. But if you play a game, there are certain like in-game rewards that are randomly, quote unquote, assigned to you by some kind of algorithm. And this is a very basic algorithm called a random number generator. And something that I've noticed other gamers like myself talking about and doing and posting on social media is praying to what they call RNGesus.
Hmm.
So the random number generator, the abbreviation is RNG. And so people have kind of run with this linguistic connection and they're kind of repurposing the language of algorithmic gods and the blessings of the algorithm to talk about, being favored by RNGesus or the RNG gods. And so people are sharing their sort of hacks or prayers for this algorithm to give them the outcome that they want so that they get the character or the cool weapon or whatever, better damage in the game. And so this is like a language that a lot of gamers have adopted. And they've also come up with certain rituals that are very individual, but also very specific to the game that they're playing. So the one that I'm looking at, because I've played it the most, is Genshin Impact, which actually has a huge storyline that's related to Shinto and gods, which is how I started playing the game back in COVID. And there are Shinto shrines in the game, and gamers will want a very specific character who is hard to get through the reward system, who is a Shinto god. And so they've come up with all of these crazy things that you can either do in the shrine or other things in order to try to trick or ask the algorithm to give them that character and like increase the odds in their favor. So I'm looking at the RNG gods and RNG Jesus right now.
Do you have an article out on RNGesus? Because that sounds awesome.
It's in the works.
Okay.
So
Well,
stay
come back.
tuned.
Yeah, come back too. Also, what's the timeline for that book?
Undetermined.
Okay, great. Well, please come back to talk about the gaming article as well when that comes out, and obviously come back and talk about the book. But what a cool read this article is. The YouTube gods will bless you, seeking algorithmic salvation in the YouTube prosperity gospel from religion. And I'm looking here, and it looks like it was from issue 55 in May of 2025. So, Dr. Kaitlyn Ugoretz, where can people find you if they want to follow along with all of the projects that you have in the works?
Yeah, Twitter is a hellscape now, so you can find me on Blue Sky at Kaitlyn Ugoretz, and you can find me on YouTube at Eat Pray Anime.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I look forward to having you back for a part three and possibly a part four as well, too, sometime. So thank you so much for coming back, and I look forward to having you again on the show.
Thanks for having me.